Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. حياكم الله ومساءكم الخير, and a warm welcome to you all. And today, alhamdulillah, we have reached and arrived at Al-Asl Al-Rabi'. We have arrived at foundation number 4. Yeah, foundation number 4. And this foundation incorporates knowledge, comprehension, and who the people of knowledge are. Yeah? Al-Asl Al-Rabi'. بيان العلم والعلماء والفقه والفقهاء. بيان العلم والعلماء والفقه والفقهاء. So, making evident what knowledge is and who the people of knowledge are. والفقه والفقهاء, and what jurisprudence is and who the true jurists are. وبيان من تشبه بهم وليس منهم, and making clear and evident who those are from amongst the people who try to emulate the scholars who are actually not from them. Yeah? وبيان من تشبه بهم وليس منهم. So making evident and clear to the people those who try to act as if they are scholars, but in actual fact they're not from the scholars. Okay, so we're going to, as I somewhat do, such as in Al-Asl Al-Awwal wa Thani, break things down by way of ta'rifat. Ta'rifat are what, ikhwan? Who remembers? Ta'rifat. What does that mean? Do you remember? Oh, ta'rif. Close, yeah? Definitions. Ta'rif in Arabic language means definition. So, we're going to look at ilm in terms of its definition, and then we're going to look at a few other things in terms of their definitions. هذا أصل عظيم. So this is a great foundation. وهو بيان المراد بالعلم. So it's a clarity. It's making itself clear to the people what's the intent of knowledge. So what's the intent here of knowledge? وهو أن العلم هو العلم الشرعي المبني على كتاب الله وسنة رسوله. هذا هو العلم النافع. هذا هو العلم النافع. So it's that knowledge here is the knowledge of Allah's legislation, that which is built upon Allah's book and the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. This is the beneficial, fruitful knowledge, al-ilm al-nafi'. Okay, so we mentioned knowledge, so we're going to make mention of what knowledge is, because you know some people that talk about knowledge and they like to flex themselves academically and show as if they know what they're talking about. What's the true knowledge we're speaking about here today? So linguistically, لغة العلم بمعنى ماذا? It means what? العلم linguistically in Arabic language, as Ibn Qayyim has mentioned in his book Al-Fawaid, نقل الصورة المعلوم الخارج وإثباتها في النفس. نقل الصورة المعلوم الخارج وإثباتها في النفس. What does that mean? I'm going to do this slowly. Transferring what is known externally. Transferring what is known externally and rooting it within oneself. Transferring what is known externally, kharij, and rooting it within one's self. That's the linguistic meaning. What meaning is it? لغة. جزاكم الله خير. Okay. Now, al-ilm al-nafi', beneficial knowledge. This is the easy part now. The linguistic part was a bit long. Yeah? Al-ilm al-nafi', beneficial knowledge is what? Al-ilm bil-haq wal-amalu bihi. Al-ilm bil-haq wal-amalu bihi. What does that mean? The actual al-ilm al-nafi', the beneficial knowledge which we're talking about here, is knowledge of the truth and acting by it. Knowledge of the truth and acting by it. As we all know, it's not merely enough to just know something but not act by it. That's not true guidance. Yeah? So what is istilah shar in terms of the Islamic legislation, the understanding of ilm al-nafi', beneficial knowledge, al-ilm bil-haq wal-amalu bihi, knowledge of the truth and acting by it. Simple, basit jiddan. Yeah? Okay. أما العلوم الدنيا من الحرث والصناعات والطب وغير ذلك. As for the knowledge of this worldly life, such as agriculture, yeah, and engineering and medicine and anything similar to that, هذه لا يطلق عليها العلم بدون قيد. فإذا قيل العلم والذي فيه الفضل فإن المراد به العلم الشرعي. العلم الشرعي. So he goes and says, as for secular knowledge, agriculture, manufacturing, and medicine, and other than that, then the term knowledge is not applied to them unrestrictedly. So if it is said knowledge, which is of virtue, fadl, then certainly what is intended is Islamic knowledge. So when you see the word fadl, fadl means virtue. Fadl, it means virtue in Arabic language, yeah? Fadl. When you see that come along with ilm, it's most cases applied in regards to Islamic knowledge, yeah? So as you see, many from the non-Muslims, they're acquiring much surplus amounts of knowledge and data from all over the globe, yeah? No doubt that's knowledge. But it's knowledge of what? The dunya. And they work hard for it. As you all know, they work hard night and day, creating things that we use, such as the camera, or this particular camera anyway, and, social gadgets and what have you. No doubt this is, technology. You need knowledge to make it. But is this the true knowledge that guides you? No. Yeah? As is mentioned that فَلَيْسَ الْفَضْلِ بِكَثْرَةِ الْإِجْتِهَادِ فَلَيْسَ الْفَضْلِ بِكَثْرَةِ الْإِجْتِهَادِ ولكن بالهدى والسداد. فليس الفضل بكثرة الاجتهاد ولكن بالهدى والسداد. What does that mean? So virtue, fadl, is not attained by solely exerting oneself. Rather, it is attained by correct guidance. Yeah? And as you all know, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the non-Muslims all sorts of benefits from this dunya. He allows them to eat, sleep, have progeny, grow agriculture, and live off that for years. This is all from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from them are some that even after seeing proofs for Islam being true, they still turn away from that. Does that not show you Allah's rahmah? His mercy? Yeah? But as I said, there's no fadl in that. There's no virtue in that. There's no virtue at all. And likewise, ilm, as Ibn Mas'ud mentioned, this is an important narration as well, muhim jiddan. Ibn Mas'ud said, ليس العلم للمرء بكثرة الرواية. ليس العلم للمرء بكثرة الرواية ولكن العلم الخشية. So knowledge isn't just knowing a surplus and an abundance in terms of narrations. Rather, ilm is fear, i.e. of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? Ilm, true knowledge, is fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. أما علم الحرف والصناعات والمهن هذه العلوم مباحة. So as for knowledge of agriculture, engineering, building all sorts of things, and all sorts of other professions, all of these things are generally speaking allowed in Islam. ولا يطلق عليها اسم العلم. But they're not referred to as knowledge unrestrictedly. Yeah? بدون قيد. إنما يقال علم الهندسة وعلم الطب، لكن للأسف أصبح الآن في عرف الناس إذا قيل العلم فإنه يراد به العلم الحديث، فإنه يراد به العلم الحديث. يقولون إذا سمعوا شيء من القرآن هذا يشهد له العلم الحديث، وإذا جاء حديث قالوا هذا يشهد له العلم. وصار العلم الآن يطلق على علم الحرف والصناعات والطب وغير ذلك. So he goes on to say, rather they only refer to the knowledge of engineering and likewise علم الطب, medicine, as these things as, whatever it may be. And unfortunately, he goes on to say, unfortunately, nowadays it has become a habit of the people that when it is said knowledge, they assume it's modern day knowledge, science, yeah? Modern day knowledge. And when they hear something from the Quran, they say this is what modern day knowledge confirms. And when a prophetic narration is mentioned, they said this is what modern day knowledge confirms. Nowadays, the term knowledge is applied to knowledge of agriculture, manufacturing, medicine, and other than that. So basically, when you hear the Prophet, peace be upon him, saying something 1400 years ago, people are like, oh yeah, that's deen. But when unfortunately, I'm going to use this term, a non-Muslim from America or Europe says, oh yes, this is true, but the Prophet confirmed this 1400 years ago, then people want to start tweeting it. You see? But what if that non-Muslim now comes back and says it's not true according to my research? We're going to disbelieve now. No, that's not the case. The Prophet Muhammad said this, it's true. Yeah? Okay. مع أنه قد يكون جهلا لأنه قد يعتريه شيء من الخطأ الكثير لأنه موجود ولأنه مجهود بشري خلاف العلم الشرعي فإنه من الله. Okay, so he goes on to say here, however, it's possible that it is being applied to ignorance because it, i.e. science, is liable, it's likely to much error, it's susceptible to much error. Yeah, science changes. Yeah, in that particular sense, there's one branch of science that changes. Yeah, and it's liable to error due to it being the result of human efforts. Yeah, majhud bashari, contrary to Islamic knowledge, for indeed it is from Allah, as Allah mentions in the Quran, لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه تنزيل من حكيم حميد. Yeah, falsehood cannot come to it from any angle. Falsehood cannot come to it from any angle. A revelation sent down by the All-Wise, the one worthy of absolute power or praise. The one worthy of absolute praise. What does Abdurrahman as-Sa'di mention in regards to his tafsir about this ayah now? He goes on to say, هو محفوظ في تنزيله. The Quran has been preserved in regards to how it's been sent down. Yeah? Unlike the other previous scriptures, it was left to the efforts of man to preserve, but they failed in that. But as for the Quran, then Allah has preserved it in its coming down, in its revelation. Yeah? محفوظة الألفاظ ومعانيه, and also in its meanings too. Okay. So now I'm going to bring a hadith in reference to knowledge, but I'm just going to make mention of something also. So al-ilm. Al-ilm, we said before, is what? Shar'an, in terms of Allah's legislation. Al-ilm al-nafi is what, ikhwan? Al-ilm al-haq wal-amal bihi. It's knowledge of the truth and acting by it. Al-murad al-ilm al-shari'a wal-fiqh fi din-illah. So the intent of this is knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's legislation and jurisprudence, fiqh, fi dinillah, in the religion of Allah. Wa asasu dhalik, tawheedullah. And the very foundation, the basis for this is monotheism. Fi rububiyyatihi, in his lordship, wa uluhiyyatihi, in his worship, wa asma'ihi, and also in his names and attributes. Okay, so now to the hadith. And this goes to show the fadl of knowledge now. من نفس عن مؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا. من نفس عن مؤمن من كرب الدنيا. Whoever removes a hardship, whoever removes a hardship among the hardships of this world from a believer, عن مؤمن, نفس الله عنه كربة. Allah will remove a hardship from him. من كرب يوم القيامة, on the day of resurrection. ومن يسر على معسر, ومن يسر على معسر, and whosoever relieves or brings ease to one in difficulty. يسر الله عليه في الدنيا والآخرة. يسر الله عليه في الدنيا والآخرة. Allah will make his affair easy on the day of resurrection. ومن ستر مسلما, and whosoever covers a Muslim. ومن ستر مسلما ستر الله في الدنيا والآخرة. Then Allah will cover his faults on the day of judgment. والله في عون العبد ما كان العبد في عون أخيه. Yeah, Allah will continue to help a person so long as he is helpful to his brother. ومن سلك طريقا, ومن سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علم, and whoever goes out traversing a path for knowledge, سهر الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة, then Allah will facilitate and help him along the way in ascertaining paradise. Yeah? Allah will make easy, i.e. for him, that way to paradise. Look, ilm. مجتمع قوم في بيت من بيوت الله. So there is not a group of people who gather together in the house, from the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, من بيوت الله, يتلون كتاب الله, reciting the book of Allah, ويتدارسونه بينهم, and studying it between themselves, يعني amongst themselves. إلا نزلت عليهم السكينة, except the tranquility of Allah descends upon them. وغشيتهم الرحمة, and the mercy envelopes them. وغشيتهم الرحمة. وحفتهم الملائكة وذكرهم الله في من عنده. وذكرهم الله في من عنده. And the angels surround them. The angels surround them, and Allah makes mention of them to those who are in His presence. وَمَنْ بَطَّأَ بِهِ أَمَلُهُ لَمْ يُسْرِعْ بِهِ نَسَبُهُ. لَمْ يُسْرِعْ بِهِ نَسَبُهُ. So, and whoever is slow in performing deeds and delays them, then his high lineage will not help him to race ahead. So we can see here, look, the virtue of knowledge. The virtues of knowledge here. طريقا إلى الجنة إن شاء الله. الإخلاص لابد, you know, obviously with sincerity, this is imperative, but these are the fada'il, the virtues of knowledge. And also he goes on to say, Yahya bin Ammar from the Salafi explains 5 types of ilm. Yeah? 5 types of ilm. I got this at Abu Ayyad's website, so it's, you know, readily available for all. And these 5 particular types of knowledge is in regards to one's life and religion. So he goes on to say, Al-ulum khamsa. Al-ulum khamsa. Yeah? Knowledge is of 5, effectively. Ilm. Huwa hayatuddin. Knowledge, i.e., in regards to life of the religion. Hayatuddin, life of the religion. وهو علم التوحيد, and that is knowledge of monotheism. That is knowledge of monotheism. Tawheed, worshipping Allah alone and not associating a partner with Him in that. والعلم هو قوت الدين, and knowledge which is nourishment. Yeah? Knowledge which is nourishment. وهو العظة والذكر, and that knowledge is what? عظة وذكر, meaning good preachment and remembrance. So this is the nourishment, قوت الدين, the nourishment that we have for our religion, you know, it keeps us going, dhikr and good preachment. When you hear a good sermon, something that, you know, gives life to the qalb, This is that which keeps you going. Nourishment. Like, you know how you eat good food, your body, inshallah, becomes stronger. It develops in ways in which bad food wouldn't allow it to develop. That for us, dhikr and, maw'idat al-hasana, good preachment. Yeah? Hayatuddin. Yeah? وَالْعِلْمُ هُوَ الدَّوَاء الدِّينِ. And there's knowledge which is similar to medical treatment for one's religion. Medical treatment for one's religion. What is that? Fiqh. Comprehension, i.e. of this religion. Understanding. Medical treatment for one's religion is fiqh. Jurisprudence, comprehension. Yeah? And then you have وَعِلْمُ هُوَ دَاءُ الدِّينِ. And then you have a knowledge which is a disease to one's religion. What is that? هو ما حصل وما حدث وما وقع بين السلف. Meaning, هو أخبار ما وقع بين السلف. So that which is a disease to one's religion is the narrations of what happened at the time of the Salaf in regards to those things we shouldn't mention. Yeah, the things they fell short in. That is a disease to our religion. Yeah, and who do you find mostly doing that? The Shia, Rafida. Whenever you come into contact with Shia, the first thing they say is, not Allah and the Messenger, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. I'm like, wasn't that the same person that preserved the Quran, Allah praised? Quiet. So this is how our religion is, those 5 things there. And I'll read it again. Hayatuddin, yeah? One's life within religion. That's ilm al-tawheed, knowing monotheism. And then we have ilm, which is the second type, qut al-din, the nourishment of one's religion. That is idha wa dhikr. Ya maw'izatul hasana wa dhikr. The nourishment we have for our religion is remembering Allah and good preachment that we receive. And then we have a third type, dawa' ad-din, medical treatment, which is al-fiqh. Yeah, because comprehension of, jurisprudential issues is understanding things. Yeah, it helps you, break down a mas'ala. It helps you understand why so-and-so's of this opinion and why so-and-so does this action in prayer. Yeah, this is comprehension. And then you have lastly, da'ud-din, which is disease. That part for your religion is ma waqa'a in the salaf, the akhbar. So, we've got the last one here. The fifth one's here. It's coming. Yeah? The fourth one, akhbar ma waqa'a fi salaf. Yeah, or ma waqa'a in the salaf. That which, happened at the time of the salaf. From the fitan. We're not going to deny it didn't happen. And the last one, huwa al-ilm, huwa halak ad-din. This is destruction of the religion now. Destruction of the religion. Huwa al-kalam. Huwa al-kalam. Destruction of the religion is rhetoric. Philosophy, if you like, in that sense. Yeah, but more so rhetoric. Yeah?
Could you give an example of Da'ud-din? Because I missed it.
A disease. Yani when, for example, the innovators come and say this particular event happened at the time of the Salaf. A fitan of some sort or a fitna of some sort happened. I'm not going to go into details because we're not supposed to. We're going to get to that. That's in Usul al-Sunnah. We don't generally speaking, we don't go into the affairs of, fitan. Yeah, exactly. كما قال النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام إذا ذكر أصحابي فأمسكوا. If my companions are mentioned, then withhold, i.e. from the bad things that happened at their time. We're not saying they're perfect, but they're better than you, O Rafida. Sah? They preserved our religion. They gave us a Quran that you read in your house. Who gave you that Quran? Ahlul Sunnah. Mushaf al-Uthmani. Yeah. طيب. And as Ibn Mubarak said, من تعاطى الكلام تزندقه. من تعاطى الكلام تزندقه. What does that mean? Whosoever resorts to rhetoric, words with large meanings and ambiguous sort of connotations, Whoever resorts to that kalam, that rhetoric, the zandaqa, falls into heresy. Yeah? And that's why you find these people that enter into the realms of da'wah using big slogans and jargon and rhetoric within their way in calling people to Islam. Yes, you may come across as if you sound intelligent and academic, but was that the call of the messenger? Did the messenger use those big words in which had people like that, looking to the side as if, like, what do you mean? All right, you've won them over, you've quote unquote, they call it grandstanding when, somewhat call an end to a debate and use big words and whatnot to somewhat make it as if, you are of a higher ground intellectually. But was that the call of the messenger? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Utitu jawami al-kalim. Utitu jawami al-kalim. Basically, I've been given the ability to say small things but with large meanings. You see? But yet you're using these words such as contingency and ila akhirihi, it's just it's long-winded, as you all know from the Tuesday lesson. Yeah? As it's mentioned by one of the Salaf, خَيْرُ كَلَامَ قَلَّ وَدَلَّ. The best of speech is that which is concise and to the point. Imagine you're giving da'wah for the last 20 minutes and you've used all these large slogans and jargon and rhetoric, and the guy's still like, who do you worship again? Imagine that. Imagine that. So don't let them, put your da'wah down because it's simplistic and to the point. Yeah? Ibn al-Qayyim mentions some nice abiyat, lines of poetry in regards to this very affair. He goes on to say, وَاسْتَعْ بِمَا قَالَ الرَّسُولُ وَلَا تَخَفْ مِنْ قِلَّةِ الْأَنصَارِ وَالْأَعْوَانِ وَاللَّهُ نَاصِرُ دِينِهِ وَكِتَابِهِ وَاللَّهُ كَافٍ عَبْدُهُ بِأَمَانِهِ لَا تَخْشَى مِنْ كَيْدِ الْعَدْوَى وَمَكْرِهِمْ فَقِتَالُهُمْ بِالْكَذِبِ وَالْبُهْتَانِ. So he goes on to say, boldly proclaim what the messenger said. And do not be fearful of the few supporters you may have. So boldly proclaim what the messenger said, and do not be fearful of the few supporters you may have. Allah is the aider of His religion and His book. Wallahu nasiru dinihi wa kitabi. Allah is the aider of His book. Wallahu kafin abaduhu bi amani. Allah is the sufficer for His worshipper by way of protection. لا تخشى من كيد العدوى ومكرهم فقتالهم بالكذب والبهتان. So do not fear the plot of the enemy and their conspiring, for indeed they fight by means of slander and lying. And this is what you see. You advise them, you bring them to a better understanding of what true knowledge is, and then give it a year or two later, they're speaking about, so-and-so takes money from X, Y, and Z governments. He's a spy, and subhanAllah, where did that come from? Allah musta'an. Okay, so loving knowledge and its people. This is the second part. This is not actually found in the book. These are ta'liqat kharija al-kitab. So these are notes taken from outside of the book. There's also mentioned by Ibn al-Qayyim. So Ibn al-Qayyim, as you all know, he's like a doctor, a professor of the heart. He revives the qalb, because in order for the ummah to, get on and, fight against the evil that's out there, the heart has to be given life to. And we're going to go through some of his works maybe in another lesson, inshallah. So Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in Miftah Dar al-Sa'ada, Mahabbat al-ilm wa ahlihi, loving knowledge and its people. Once again, back to knowledge, yeah? فَمَنْ أَحَبَّ الْعِلْمَ وَأَهْلِهِ فَقَدْ أَحَبَّ مَا أَحَبَّهُ اللَّهُ. Whosoever love knowledge and its people, فَقَدْ أَحَبَّ مَا أَحَبَّهُ اللَّهُ. Yeah. فَمَنْ أَحَبَّ الْعِلْمَ وَأَهْلِهِ فَقَدْ أَحَبَّ مَا أَحَبَّهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever loved knowledge and its people, then he has loved that which Allah loves. Then he has loved that which Allah has loved. فمحبة العلم من علامات السعادة. فمحبة العلم من علامات السعادة. So, loving knowledge, from that is the signs of delight and happiness. وبغض العلم من علامات الشقاوة. وبغض العلم min alamat al-shaqawa. So hating knowledge is from the signs of one being wretched and misery. حب العلم وطلبه. Yeah, and then he goes and say loving knowledge and seeking it. أصل لكل طاعة is a foundation for all obedience. أصل لكل طاعة is a foundation for all obedience. وحب الدنيا والمال وطلبه أصل كل سيء. So he goes and say loving the dunya, wealth, and seeking after it is the foundation of every evil. No doubt you take all of these affairs into moderation. No doubt, you might like something from the dunya, but don't go beyond. Meaning, don't allow that very thing to take you away from your religion. Yeah, don't allow that very thing from the dunya to take you away from your religion. Yeah? Okay, so going back to the actual text now. قال تعالى إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. Verily those who truly fear Allah are the scholars. أما العلوم الهندسة والصناعة والاختراع والطب. As for the scholars of engineering, manufacturing and inventing things, فهؤلاء قد يكونون يجحلون حق الله. So these individuals, it could be that they are very ignorant about Allah's rights. Yeah, it could be that they are very ignorant about Allah's rights. Yeah. ولا يعرفون الله وإن عرفوه فمعرفتهم قاصرة. So they don't know Allah, and if they did, فمعرفتهم قاصرة, the knowledge of Him is deficient. لكن الذين يعرفون الله هم علماء الشرع. As for those that know Allah, then they are the scholars of this legislation. إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. Verily those who truly fear Allah are the scholars. لأنهم يعرفون الله بأسمائه وصفاته, because they know Allah by way of His names and attributes. ويعرفون حقه سبحانه وتعالى, and they know His rights, i.e. upon them. وهذا لا يحصل بعلم الطب وعلم الهندسة وإنما يحصل به توحيد الربوبية فقط. أما توحيد الألوهية فهذا إنما يحصل بعلم الشرع. So this is not attained through knowledge of medicine or engineering. Such sciences only bring about knowledge of lordship. Yeah, rububiyah. As for knowledge of Allah's exclusive divinity, then this is only attained through knowledge of Islamic legislation. And you do find many from the non-Muslims, they'll accept there's a creator, but how many actually want to worship Him? This is the part they find difficult, because they're still following their hawa, desires. Yeah? Al-maqsood bayanu man tashabbaha bi ahli al-ilm. So the intent behind all of this text is whosoever tries to resemble the people of knowledge, i.e. the scholars. وليس هو من أهل العلم إنما يحاكي أهل العلم. So he's not from the people of knowledge, he's just trying to pretend to be like them. And then sometimes you find them wear, I'm not saying if you wear shimagh and you carry yourself, as if like you're some super talib al-ilm. And sometimes you find this. I'm not saying everyone that does that, is falling into what we're mentioning here. But sometimes you find individuals, I know, and the bish, that's a, subhanallah. You see a man wearing a bish to Salat al-Isha and he lives in Shepherd's Bush. Subhanallah. Yeah? Not to say he's wrong for doing that, but there's a particular type of way in which they do it. Maybe that could be a lesson for another time. نعم. ويتشبه بهم وهو لا يملك رصيدا من العلم. And he tries to resemble them in, every aspect, but he doesn't really possess any satisfactory knowledge. وهذا ضرره عظيم على نفسه وعلى الأمة. And this has detrimental effect upon oneself and the Muslim ummah, the Muslim nation. As you all know, everyone's now a TikToker or a YouTube sort of mufti or like a talib. And you find this, one day it's I'm doing this, and now, you know what, let me do da'wah. As if that was just a job anyone can jump on. Nah. Da'wah is the shughul of the Anbiya wa Rusul. It's the work of the prophets and messengers. It's an honorable job. It's not something just jumping out of like Tesco's, you know? You don't do these things. Because what actually happens is that they lack certain things that you can only ascertain from ulama. So an individual that reads text and has effectively memorized the Quran, no doubt he's of benefit to the ummah. But has he sat with the ulama? Does he understand the adab wa akhlaq al-islamiyya? How knowledge should actually be actualized, how knowledge should be manifested? No. This is something you only get from sitting with the ulama. Something I've witnessed. You see this in people. A person that sits with the ulama for years, you'll see his patience with the people. You see how he deals and interacts with his community. You see how he understands things take time. It won't happen overnight. So his efforts go back to the Salafis. It doesn't go back to Ahlul Bid'ah. Imagine that, you're calling yourself Salafi in Medina for 15 years or 10 years or whatever it may be, and then you come back and say, you know, it's time to sit with these individuals. It's like, where's your Salafiyah gone? These individuals who? Oh yeah, the Ikhwanis, but they've given us a seat. Akhi, the efforts of your Salafi community here lie right over there. You know, go back and serve your community. Just because they've got a nice masjid doesn't mean, you know, you should take it. You know, your people need you, i.e., serve your community. Yeah? طيب, and he goes on to say, لأنه يقول على الله بغير علم. لأنه يقول على الله بغير علم. So this individual, he speaks about Allah without any knowledge. يدل الناس بغير علم, and he misguides the people. He has no knowledge. قال تعالى فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا ليضل الناس بغير العلم. ليضل الناس بغير العلم. Therefore, who is more unjust than he who invents a lie upon Allah? Who is more unjust than he who invents a lie upon Allah, so as to lead people astray, having no basis in knowledge? Okay, so we're going to go on to this narration now. وَقَدْ قِيلَ, and it's said, yeah, and it has been said. And you all subconsciously know this. Wallah, you're all going to be like, subhanallah. يفسد الدنيا أربعة. يفسد الدنيا أربعة. This is in your textbooks, by the way. 4 people corrupt this world. نصف فقيه, half a jurist. ونصف نحوي, half a grammarian or grammarian, if that makes any sense. ونصف الطبيب, and half a doctor. ونصف متكلم. Yeah, and a half qualified specialist in, well, he's not a specialist, but a half qualified individual in the area of creed. The first, هذا يفسد البلدان. The first corrupts the country. وهذا يفسد اللسان. The second corrupts the tongue. You know, the half, somewhat quote unquote, nahwi, the one that doesn't really know Arabic too well, but believes he does. He corrupts the people's lugha. وهذا يفسد الأبدان وهذا يفسد الأديان. So, half a doctor, what do you think he does? You go in there, I don't know, with, subhanAllah, maybe a little bruise, you come out with no legs. That's half a doctor. He's even a doctor in the first place, you know? وهذا يفسد الأبدان وهذا يفسد الأديان. And the last, the one that brings corruption to religion, yeah, which is the nisf al-mutakallim, the one that doesn't really know aqidah correctly. He thinks he's cleaning up the dawah scene by using big words and slogans and debating all sorts of people, but he's actually yufsid al-adyan. He's corrupting the religion. Yeah? Okay. And then he goes on to the actual text of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab now. وَقَدْ بَيَّنَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى هَذَا الْأَصْلِ فِي أَوْلِ سُورَةِ الْبَقْرَةِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made clear and evident this very foundation in Surah Al-Baqarah من قولي يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم. يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم. O children of Israel, remember my favor upon you which I blessed you all with. Yeah. إلى قولي قبل ذكر إبراهيم عليه السلام يا بني إسرائيل، ويزيده وضوح ما صرحت به السنة في هذا من الكلام الكثير المبين الواضح العامي البليد. So this further is clarified by what the Sunnah explicitly affirms through extensive, plain and clear discourse that can be understood by any unintelligent common person. Allah Jalla wa Ala fi Surah Al-Baqarah أنزل آيات كثيرة. So in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah sent down many verses في إسرائيل تذكيرهم بنعمة الله عليهم, for the people of Israel in regards to reminding them of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings upon them. Yeah? وأمرهم باتباع محمد الذي يعرفون نبوته ورسالته في كتبهم. Yeah? And he commanded them, وأمرهم باتباع محمد الذي يعرفون نبوته ورسالته في كتبهم. So he commanded them to follow Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, whose prophethood and messengership they knew of from their own books. They knew of him through their own books. And then he goes on to say, يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم وأوفوا بأهدي أوفي بأهدكم. And he brings the ayah, O children of Israel, remember my blessings which I bestowed upon you, and fulfill your covenant with me so that I may fulfill my covenant with you. وختمها, and he completed it بقول يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم وأني فضلتكم على العالمين. And concluded by saying, O children of Israel, remember my blessings which I bestowed upon you and that I favored you over the rest of the creation. واتقوا يوما لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا ولا يقبل منها عدل ولا تنفعها شفاعة. And fear a day when no person shall avail another in the slightest, nor shall compensation be accepted from him, nor shall intercession be of any benefit to him. ثم ذكر إبراهيم عليه السلام. Then he mentioned Ibrahim, peace be upon him. وإذا ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات. Yeah? وإذا ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات. As Allah mentioned, and when Ibrahim's Lord tested him with certain commandments. Yeah? وإذا ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested Ibrahim with commandments. Even though it comes in the words of kalimat, the maqsood here is awamir, is commands. Yeah? أي بأوامر والنواهي, commands and prohibitions. And as he mentions Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di, لتبين الكاذب الذي لا يثبت عند الابتلاء, in order to make known the liar, the deceitful one, at the time of ibtila, at the time of trial. Yeah? والامتحان من الصادق الذي ترتفع درجته. Yeah? And also to test the truthful one, the sadiq, the one in which his level, by way of this fitna, will be raised once he comes out of it, inshallah. Yeah? That's why Ibn Qayyim mentioned ابتلاء فتنة الابتلاء للمؤمن كالدواء له. الابتلاء للمؤمن كالدواء له. Trial and affliction for a believer is like dawa'a for him. Why? Because it rids him and gives him expiation for sins. كل هذه الآيات ما بين الآية الأولى والآية الأخيرة. So all of these verses from the first to the very last, آية كثيرة كلها في بني إسرائيل لتذكيرهم بنعمة الله بإرسال الرسل وإنزال الكتب. So all of this is in regards to Bani Israel, in mention of them, in regards to Allah's favor upon them, meaning in him sending them rusul, messengers, and books that came to them. Yeah, that was Allah's favor upon them, books and messengers. They had a great deal of that. وأن الواجب عليهم أن يؤمنوا برسول الله, and it's imperative upon them. It was a command that they believe in Rasulullah Muhammad. وبني إسرائيل هم أولاد يعقوب, and they're from the offspring of Yaqub, بني إسرائيل. فإسرائيل هو يعقوب لأنهم من ذريته وهم 12 سبط. So the sons of Jacob, Yaqub, and so Israel is actually Jacob, because they are from the progeny, or they're from his progeny. Yeah. كل ابن من أبنائه صار له ذرية. So each son from the children had progeny, and each progeny was known as Sibt. Yeah. وكل ذرية يسمون السبط بمثابة القبائل من العرب. So he goes on to say each progeny was known as a Sibt, as in tribes like the Arabs. Allah says, وَقَطَعْنَاهُمْ إِثْنَيْ عَشَرَةَ أَسْبَاطًا أُمَمًا. So, and we have divided them into 12 asbat. Asbat is the plural of Sibt. Yeah, tribes and nations. Yeah, we have divided them into 12 asbat, tribes and nations. نعم جاءت الأحاديث التي فيها من الحث على تعلم العلم والترغيب فيه. So all of these narrations have come in regards to making one more diligent upon seeking knowledge. Yeah? Encouragement to seek knowledge. وبيان ما هو العلم النافع, and as a clarification to what beneficial knowledge is. What's beneficial knowledge? علم الحق والعمل به. العلم النافع is knowledge of the truth and acting by it. Yeah? And Shaykh Uthaymin, he used to say, rahimahullah, the haqq. What's the haqq? What's the truth? He used to go on to say, oh subhanAllah, it left me. Yeah, ليس الحق ما عمله الناس. The truth is not what the people do. ليس الحق ما عمل الناس. The truth is not what the people do, meaning أغلبية, the majority. Because Allah said, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And if you were to obey the majority upon this earth, they would misguide you. Yeah? Yes, that's what he used to say. He say, الحق ما أقام عليه الدليل وليس ما عمله الناس. The haqq, the truth, is that which evidence has been brought forth to. The truth is that which evidence has been, put forth to, not what the people do. نعم. So he goes on to say, وهو العلم الذي لا ينفع الشيء الكثير. And what is non-beneficial knowledge. And as the hadith goes, من يريد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. من يريد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. Whosoever wants, i.e., whosoever Allah wants good for, then He will give him comprehension, fiqh fi din. As Shaykh Ubaid mentioned, hafidhullah, and yaj'alah, i.e., that person ala basira, and yaj'alahu ala basira. He gives him insight in regards to his religion, clarity. Yeah? من يريد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. Whosoever Allah wants good for, i.e., in this religion, then He gives them basira, understanding, comprehension. Okay, carrying on. وإذا راجعت كتاب جامع بيان العلم وفضله لابن عبد البر أو غيره عرفت هذا. And if you return to the book by Ibn Abdul Barr, and other than that, you will come to know this. And then he goes into the actual text, and this is the actual text of the book now. ثم صار هذا أغرب الأشياء. And then this affair became from the most weirdest things. وصار العلم والفقه هو البدع والضلالات. So knowledge and jurisprudence became known and seen as innovation and misguidance, ضلالات. وخير ما عندهم ليس الحق بالباطل. وخير ما عندهم لبس الحق بالباطل. وصار العلم الذي فرضه الله تعالى على الخلق ومدحه ومدحه لا يتفوه به إلا زنديق أو مجنون. So he goes on to say, at very best, they had a mixture of truth with falsehood. This is at the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, by the way, because remember when he's writing this, he's regarding all of these affairs to his time. It's all in regards to his time. So at very best, they had a mixture of truth with falsehood. Knowledge which Allah praised and obligated the creation to have was regarded as something that only a heretic or an insane person would speak of. So basically, Ahlul Sunnah were seen as madmen, yeah, by way of their beliefs. Also, whoever rejected this principle showed enmity towards it, authored books to warn against it and forbid these things, would be regarded as a knowledgeable scholar. So the one that refuted Ahlul Sunnah at this time, he was seen as a knowledgeable scholar, yeah? Which is incorrect, obviously. صار العلم والفقه عند البعض المتأخرين هو البدع والضلالات. So it became known that knowledge of jurisprudence, fiqh, yeah, in some of the later generations was seen as innovation and misguidance, yeah. لأنهم تركوا العلم الصحيح المبني على كتاب الله وسنة الرسول, because they left off the correct sound knowledge, yeah, that which the Prophet Muhammad came with and which is, you know, illustrated in the Book of Allah and in the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. وصار العلم عندهم, and knowledge became seen and known as something to them. قال فلان وقال فلان وحكايات. So it's just a statement of so and so. It's a statement of so and so, and it's just stories, khurafat, you know, things that a man saw in his dream. كقولهم إن البقر فلاني, sorry, إن القبر فلاني ينفع من كذا وإن Okay, so basically he goes on to say, it became something similar to telling stories, and he goes on to say, indeed, such and such grave can be benefited from. You can see, such and such grave can be benefited from. They will go on to say, and indeed, such and such location, so-and-so saw so-and-so in a dream and what have you, and this was knowledge of these people. Yeah, they would search for fabricated and lifeless narrations, which the people of knowledge buried and classified as fictional. Yeah. And he goes on to say, وَيَتْرَكُونَ أَحَادِيثَ الصَّحِيحَ الْوَارِدَةَ فِي الْبُخَارِ, and they would leave off the correct sound narrations that are authentic from Bukhari, ومسلم, والسنن الأربع, والمسانيد المعتبرة, والمسانيد المعتبرة. So they would leave off Bukhari and Muslim and Sunan al-Arba'. Sunan al-Arba' is Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nisa'i, Ibn Majah. Sunan al-Arba', when someone says that within the realms of istilahat al-hadith, when they say Sunan al-Arba', Abu Dawud, Nisa'i, Ibn Majah, and Tirmidhi. Those are the four known as Sunan al-Arba'. And they would, you know, leave off some of the most heavily renowned, relied upon narrations. يتركونها لأنها ليست في صالحهم, and they would leave off these things because they're not in their favor. يجب أن يميز الحق من الباطل ويفصل بينهما. So it's imperative and obligatory upon us to distinguish between truth and falsehood and to differentiate between them. And that is the thing today. People giving dawah, people out there trying to better the ummah, they don't want to distinguish between truth and falsehood within Islam. They would refute Nasara, they would refute the Yuhud, they would refute the Mulhideen, the atheists and the Mustashrikeen and the Orientalists. But how did the previous nations go astray? Because they never used to forbid the evil within themselves from before. And that's what you somewhat see happening now. But Ahlul Sunnah, no doubt, will still be here. Yeah? أما إذا خلط بينهم فهو التلبيس والغش والتدليس على الناس لأنهم يخالفوا ما هم عليه. And if they are merged together, then this is treachery, fraud, and deceiving, i.e. deceiving the people. فالعلم الذي أثنى الله عليه وعلى أهله ومدحه وصار عندهم جهلا وَمَنْ تَفَوَّحَ بِهِ أي تَكَلَّمَ بِهِ فَهُوَ مَجْنُونَ. So knowledge which Allah praised was then regarded as ignorance because it contradicted what they practiced. And whoever spoke with praiseworthy knowledge was considered insane. Yeah? Once again, it's at the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah. لأنهم يقولون إن العلم الذي فرضه الله يغير ما عليه الناس ويغير دين آبائنا وأجدادنا. So they say the knowledge that Allah obligated changes the practices of the people, yeah? And the religion of our forefathers and those that came before them. من صنف في التحذير في العلم النافع ومدح العلم المذموم ونشره في الناس يقولون عنه هذا هو الفقيه. So he goes on to say, whoever authored books to warn against beneficial knowledge and praise blameworthy knowledge and also spread it among the people, they would say about him, he's the faqih, he's actually the jurist. هذا هو العالم وهذا هو العالم إنما من نشر العلم الصحيح يقولون عنه هذا لا يصلح وهذا جاهل وهذا يريد أن يفرق الناس. أنا نريد التجميع لا نريد التفريق. So this is what they go on to say. This person is not suitable. Yeah? This person is ignorant and this person wants to split the people. And we want to gather the people. And we don't want separation. As you know, this is what the Ikhwanis say. We want us all to be together. Yeah? They say these things. Let us all just unite for the greater good. But it's obviously something where your good is not the same what we deem to be good. Yeah? Sitting with a grave worshipper. Someone that ينكر على أحاديث. For example, you find an individual, yeah, let's, join the ranks. This man next to you throws away the narrations of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How is your good in conformity to our good? Two different things. You're on one manhaj and we're on another. Yeah? أي التجميع ولو على الباطل, meaning coming together even if it's upon falsehood. This is what these people are calling to. ولا نريد التفريق الذي فيه تمييز الحق من الباطل. And they go on to say, we don't want tafriq, separation, to differentiate ourselves from that which distinguishes truth from falsehood. وتمييز الطبيب وتمييز الطيب من الخبيث, and distinguishing the good from the evil doer effectively. وهذا محال فإنه لا يحصل الاجتماع على الباطل وإنما يحصل الاجتماع على الحق. So basically, this is impossible because unity does not occur by way of falsehood. Unity does not occur by way of falsehood. It only occurs by way of truth. Yeah? As the hadith goes, لا تجتمع أمتي على الضلالة. My ummah will not unite upon misguidance. This hadith is also a proof for ijma'. This hadith, Shaykh Albani mentions it. It's a proof for ijma'. And then he goes on to mention some بيت من الشعر, line of poetry. والشاعر يقول إذا ما الجرح رمى على فساد تبين فيه إهمال الطبيب. Meaning, if the injury heals disproportionately, not properly, then the negligence of the doctor becomes clear. So look, for example, the da'i comes and says he's going to rectify the ummah, he's going to bring things together, him and his jama'ah. 100 years later, they still got people of shirk within the same organization. He spoke well. He sounded as if he knows what he's speaking about. But what did he rectify in 30 years? 50 years? Nothing. He's still got the same issues that are pending. But alhamdulillah, you see the Maraqas of Salafiyya upon Tawheed, teaching the people their religion, reviving the books of the Salaf. That's a result. That's the nata'ij of following that which Muhammad ﷺ left us upon. Yeah? And then you go on to see through time, people don't even want to study these days. Alhamdulillah, look, mashallah, tabarakallah, how many people from amongst us are here studying tonight? When it comes to Ahlul Bidah, they don't study akhi, it's just online course. Quick fire round with da'wah. Yeah? As one of the Aqran, the contemporaries of Imam Ahmad, he mentioned, رحلت أطلب أصل العلم مجتهدا وزينة المرء في الدنيا الأحاديث لا يطلب العلم إلا باذل ذكر وليس يبغضه إلا المخانيث لا تعجبن بمال سوف تتركه فإنما هذه الدنيا مواريث. So he goes on to say, رحلت أطلب أصل العلم مجتهدا. I went out seeking the very fundamentals and foundations of this religion. Yeah? رحلت أطلب أصل العلم مجتهدا وزينة المرء في الدنيا الأحاديث. And the adornment, the beautification of a man in this world is seeking the ahadith, the knowledge. لا يطلب العلم إلا باذل ذكر. So وليس يبغضه إلا المخانيف. So you find that the one that doesn't actually seek knowledge, he's effeminate, somewhat similar to a woman in that particular sense. Yeah? لا يطلب العلم إلا باذل ذكر وليس يبغضه إلا المخاريف. Those that somewhat hate that are, women-like in that sense. Yeah? لا تعجبن بمال سوف تتركه فإنما هذه الدنيا مواريث. And don't be, astounded and just in awe and, surprised by the wealth in which you gather. فإنما هذه الدنيا مواريث. Very, this dunya will be inherited. It will be left to its heirs. Yeah? And that's what Ahlul Bidah have done. They've left off knowledge, true knowledge. Like I said, I'm not talking about the knowledge of agriculture and mobile phones and technology and space and whatnot. I'm not talking about those things there. And cryptocurrency. We're not talking about that there. We're talking about the knowledge of Allah and the Messenger have left us with. Yeah? I think I'll round it up on one last narration or two. حدثنا يعقوب ibn Humayd. And then he goes on to say, قام معاوية خطيبا فقال أين علماؤكم. So Muawiyah stood up خطيبا, informing them. فقال أين علماؤكم. Where are your scholars? أين علماؤكم. سمعت رسول الله يقول, I heard the messenger of Allah say, لا تقوم الساعة إلا وطائفة من أمتي ظاهرون على الناس. So the hour will not be established. The hour will not be established except that a party from my nation will be manifest, upright with the people. لا يبالون من خذلهم ولا من نصرهم. And they do not care who let them down or those who betray them or support them. So due to steadfastness of the ulama, the tathabbat fi deen, and their khashya of Allah, as we mentioned, only truly those scholars fear Allah. They are not scared of the blame of the blamers, the lawmat al-la'im. They're not scared of the blame of the blamers. And that's what you find sometimes. I've seen this myself, yeah? Where people will come to you and say, if you speak about so-and-so, then we're going to say X and Y and Z about you. Because you're making tibyan al-haq, because you're making the truth manifest and clear. They threaten you. But Ahlul Sunnah, they don't fear the blame of the blamers. La yakhafun lawmat al-la'im. Yeah? And they are the followers, the true followers of the atba' of the inheritors of the prophets. Yeah? And lastly, this very narration here, which you all, I'm pretty sure, are aware of. إن الله لا يقبض العلم انتزاعا ينتزعه من العباد. Allah does not take away knowledge by the taking away. Verily, Allah does not take away the knowledge by taking it away from the hearts of the people. Yeah? ولكن يقبض العلم بقبض العلماء. He takes away this very thing by the death of the scholars. حتى إذا لم يبقى عالما اتخذ الناس رؤوسا جحالا. Till no scholar remains, then the people will take their leaders ignoramuses. The people will take as leaders ignoramuses. فسئلوا فأفتوا بغير علم فضلوا وأضلوا. So when they will be asked, they will give verdicts and they will lead others astray, and likewise lead them themselves astray. And in the last part of the narration, يستفتون فيفتون برأيهم فَيُضِلُّونَ وَيَضِلُّونَ. And they will give verdicts based upon their own opinions. They will give verdicts based upon their own opinions. So they will go astray and will lead the people astray. And as we mentioned before, the previous nations, one of the reasons how they split up, yeah, due to people imputing their opinions within religion. Yeah? As Imam Malik said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَأَهْلُ الرَّأْيِ فَإِنَّهُمْ أَعْدَاءُ السُّنَّةِ. Be aware of the people of opinion, for verily they are the enemies of the Sunnah. And upon that note, جزاكم الله خير وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.